Hello, my friends. Welcome to Living the Liminal this week. I am so glad you're here. I have the most coolest guest. I cannot wait to delve into a conversation with her. You know, there are so many ways that we meet people, and whenever we meet people, it's always about what is it that I have to experience, or I can learn, or I can gain more wisdom, or just see life in a different way. And my guest today, never really met her face to face, but I've met her through a book. And it was the books that are written by Robert Schwartz, who was on our podcast a few episodes ago. So please check him out. That was an amazing conversation. But I met her through there, and I just felt this kindred spirit, and I invited her on, and she agreed to come, and I'm so glad. So Corbie Mitleid, thank you so much for being here today with us. I cannot wait. Corbie is a certified tarot master. She's a past life specialist. She's a psychic medium, a channel, an ordained minister, an inspirational speaker. She's an author of many books, which she's going to tell us all about, and I can't wait to talk about them. She's an intuitive counselor, a member of the Army of the Lights and the Dark. She does tarot and oracle card deck readings, just a wealth of a person. And Corbie, welcome to Living the Liminal today.
It's great to be here. Thanks for asking.
So that's a lot of stuff that I just read off.
I'm 67. You do things, you know?
I know. Probably a big way to bring you in is to tell us, how did all of that work sort of find you?
All right. This is what I call the 30-second elevator speech. When I was 9, I read a book called The Witch Family by Eleanor Estes, and I thought, wow, there's magic in the world. I want to go find it. Fast forward to 1973, when I was a senior in high school. That was the year Live and Let Die came out. I worked part-time at Spencer Gifts. They had the James Bond 007 tarot deck, and I bought it because we were all hippies then. 5 years later, everybody else had moved on to roller skates and disco balls, but I was still reading the cards. I loved the stories they told. Mm-hmm. So for 20 years, I read for friends and family, keeping my ego in check, clear channel. All of a sudden in 1994, I could do hands-on healing and talk to dead people with no training. That's when the universe handed me my draft notice and said, hello, you're working for us. So I did it part-time while doing a lot of other things for a career until 9/11. When the towers were burning, I looked at my husband and I said, I need this psychic work full-time. People need to know there are other answers out there. He said, I believe in you, go do it. So for one more year, I did the 70 hours a week corporate thing, psychic work evenings and weekends. In 2002, I kicked the door shut on corporate, and I've never looked back. It's 20 years later. I work 6 days a week. I read 1,000 people a year, and I get to get up every morning. I don't have to get up every morning. That's the difference.
Oh my gosh. Okay. There's a wealth of ways I want to go into that. First of all, I'm going to start off with, so you just had this very intuitive sense from the time you were little, this curiosity about you. How did you know to follow it? I mean, that was not something back then when we were all younger, was a path to easily follow. I mean, for one, like you said, it wasn't like there was a lot out there.
Agreed. But I've always been the different one in my family. Everybody in my family was medical. Dad was a doctor. My mother was a nurse. My brother is a doctor. I was theater. I was a writer. I could have stood on the dining room table and tap danced and recited Shakespeare, and nobody would have gotten me. So I've always been a rebel. I've always been the one that my family assumes is going to be a failure, and they just, kind of don't mention me and ignore me. But that left me the room to have the difficult life, to do all the double backs and the stupids, but learn from them to make me the person I am now. I would not be the counselor I am now without the poverty, the 2 divorces, the physical assaults, the 3 bouts of breast cancer. I mean, it's roller coaster, no breaks, but at the end of it, it's why I can counsel as deeply as I can, because if I can get through it, anybody can. I'm not special.
I love that you say I'm not special. I have found myself saying that to a lot of people, like, we're not special. It's just, and you said 3 things that I'm going to tap upon. You said I'm a rebel, like sort of like a rebel at heart, like it's an aspect of you. And so explain spiritual rebelism. I just made that up as we're sitting here, but I believe there's something about pushing those roles, pushing the boundaries, taking leaps that does find us accessing something beyond this physical world.
I've always lived the examined life. The examined life is, okay, this thing is happening to me. What's the lesson I need to learn later in life? Now, how can I teach with it next? My life was constant change.
Okay.
To be perfectly honest, most of it was highly unpleasant, but I wouldn't let it stop me. There's the old toy, the Weebles. Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down.
Oh,
That was me.
okay.
And I learned that the only one who believed in me was me. And so that's how I kept doing it. There was a reason I was here. I signed up for this. And the more I've done the past life research and my own stuff, this is a soul that comes in during the dark times, comes in when things end. Things like German soldier in World War I, they lost. Yorkist in the Wars of the Roses, they lost. The world is, we won't go into the details, but it's in a very dark place.
Yeah.
That's when I have to come in and teach. And it's also why I make a very big difference between boomers and elders. I'm an elder who's a boomer, but not all boomers are elders by any means.
Okay. So some of us come into this lifetime as an old soul.
Not even an old soul, because that is the idea that I'm better than you, I'm an older soul. No, we just come in because we're teachers.
Okay.
There is a fabulous understanding, I'll just put it that way. It's the Michael channelings, and this is not the Archangel Michael, this is the causal entity. And Shepard Hoodwin is one of the best people I know for working with it. And the idea is we all come in with roles, and there are 7 roles. There's king, warrior, sage, artisan, priest, servant, and scholar who's a neutral. This is priest energy. I mean, even 2 lives ago, when I was the squadron leader in World War I was the kind of person they would come in here, Lieutenant, can I talk to you? And they would just pour it out, and I would listen and I would help. Okay, so priest, sage, essence twin, which means that my buddy worker up there, we are stage people. We can make words magic. And so priest, sage energy, I am out there trying to wake people up to big ideas, but I do it in a way. When I say I'm a charismatic, that's not my aura don't stink. That is, we're the kinds of personalities that walk into a room 3 feet before we walk into a room. And people either love us or can't stand us, and we don't let it bother us at all. Praise and blame, all the same. Is the message getting out there? That's what matters.
Yeah, one time I had someone say to me, oh my gosh, we're praying for you, because I was pushing concepts, right? I was opening some things up. And I remember looking at them and thinking, thank you for praying for me. Like, meaning they're projecting it as something that's not nice necessarily. And I was like, hey, I'll take all the prayers I can get, because I know that I'm just going to keep opening up in this way. So pray on. I love that you say that praise and blame, it's all the same. Okay, so do you faith over fear? How do we walk? I mean, you do it so well. Okay, listening to you is just inspiring and motivating. How do we walk more towards the faith end and not so much swirling within the volcano of fear like we do on a regular basis?
All right. Faith is a very charged word these days, because the evangelicals, the fundamentalists, the dominionists have taken that word for themselves. It's almost like it's a buzzword.
Okay.
So the way I've always put it is, if fear equals false evidence appearing real, fame equals full acceptance means anything. Do you want to be fearful of famous? Even if it's only famous in your own life.
Oh, that's like such an enlightened way. Okay.
Yeah, because a lot of people, the word faith, it's as if I don't have to do anything, I'll just trust. And my preferred German proverb is begin to weave and God will give the thread.
Oh, now, which really goes in line with the whole concept of have something you're moving towards, but be detached from the need that it has to look this way or be this as an
That's
end
right.
all, and do the work in the midst. So the journey, not the destination.
Mhm. Or trust that you'll get what you need, even if it doesn't look like what you thought. You know, I'll give you a perfect example. For 18 years, I was on the road 45 weekends a year. It was 36,000 miles a year on the car. This was all to expos and fairs, and my nickname was the Travel Channel, and I absolutely loved it.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't the greatest business model for me, especially as I got older. It would have been better to bring it home, but I didn't want to. It was too much fun on the road. All of a sudden, in the summer of 2019, I got a herniated disc and pinched nerve. Got better from it, but the doctor said, all right, your career is toast. You are no longer going to be able to do 10 hours one way in the car. You're not going to be able to do the heavy load in, load out. You're done.
Mm-hmm.
So that was in the fall of 2019. And, you know, fine. The universe said, this is it, deal. And I immediately moved my entire business online. It was nerve-wracking. It was a little scary, but I managed.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, what happened in March of 2020, but the advent of the year of Murder Hornet Bingo and Hold My Beer.
Yeah.
All my friends who only did circuit work, their business tanked. Some of them went bankrupt. 20 and 21 have been my best years as an intuitive counselor because I was already where I needed to be. Okay.
So following that guidance, you listened, you followed through. You also used the experience of herniated disc and can't do what you've been doing. So we could, so like, I'm trying to point out, like you had another option, right? You could have stayed and fought. No, I'm going to keep doing it this way. This is the way it has to be done. Or you just sort of relinquished and said, okay, I'm following this other path. It must be the right one for me. And look where it led.
You know, it was even worse than that. I was in such pain. I couldn't sit in a car for half an hour. It was done.
Wow.
It's like when they told me for the third cancer dance, yeah, it's a second primary, but it's your third one. So we're taking the rack, we're taking the ovaries, and you're going from a Dolly Parton figure to a fat fire plug with permanent side effects in 3 weeks. Suck it up.
What are you going to do?
Well, I went home and cried for 24 hours because I'm normal. But then I said, all right, I have to find 3 reasons to be okay with it. I don't care how stupid they are. Number 1, you don't have them, you can't get cancer there. Number 2, they're not going to get slammed in the refrigerator door at the doctor's every year. And every woman knows what I'm talking about with that. 3, implants means I'll be perky till I'm 93. I'll deal with it. Got out of Mass General in 3 days, shopped for a bathing suit in 5.
Wow.
And I like who I am on the other side of that, actually better than I did when I had the rack, because part of my pre-birth plan was to learn that I'm worth more than my body. And when you have a Dolly Parton figure, the world tells you you're worth nothing above the neck. It's all the rest. And you have no permission to say no to men because you're a walking cock tease. That was what I was told by the world. That was what my mother told me, who was very dysfunctional. It's why my life up until about age 40, 45 was a hellscape. A lot of it was my own doing, but I hadn't learned to value who I was without the looks. So that's why the universe and my guides said, look, we need you down there to teach. So we're going to remove the problem. You know, a second primary brings the danger clock back to 0. It was T1 and it hadn't gone anywhere. Tiny amount, microcalcifications. But now, if you look at me, you would never realize that was my kind of thinking, ever. This is just me. And when I got out of the way of the body, or the body got out of my way, is when I blossomed. There's always a reason things happen. Always.
I love your statement. I like myself better after than I even did before. Because I think in our humanness, so many sit And when big storms come in, or big decisions, or big experiences, we sit in that guilt, shame, regret, wanting what was before versus what if like what's going to come here is so much better for me and I'm such at a better place.
Or we are our stories. Do you know how many women, oh my God, hi, I'm so-and-so, and I am a breast cancer survivor, and Susan Komen, and blah, blah, blah. That would be, and the cancer was 12 years ago. That would be like me saying, yes, hi, I was the Betty Crocker homemaker of America for, New Jersey in 1973 in high school, which is true. Believe it or not, I was the head homemaker of tomorrow. But that's not who I am now. Why would I keep using that story? I'm more interested in now, not then. The only time I really bring up my cancer at all is things like this, when it can be a teaching moment.
Right.
It's not about me. It's how to teach with it.
How do you think we become better learners of our experiences?
We stop being professional victims.
There's a whole victim consciousness. Like it's almost like that's another world that you can be a part of.
If you're not a victim, if terrible things aren't done to you, you don't get the new house. You don't get people helping you on a GoFundMe. Those of us who are working hard and we're normal stiffs, nobody's interested in us. Victimhood pays. And so it's the kind of thing that you really have to be very conscious to get out of, because it may not get you the free house, but it'll get you the better life, to know who you are and walk through your challenges.
I think it brings about more freedom than the free house.
It does.
Because then I kind of just believe like you live in that victim consciousness and it brings you things. So like you said, it brings you the free house. It brings you the GoFundMe. It brings you the wealth of whatever is coming your way. Even attention, and the brain doesn't differentiate positive or negative attention. It's just attention. So it brings you all those things, but there's no freedom in that, because one story has to lead to another story, has to lead to another story to stay in that flow of victim consciousness, versus the other is just to be consciously present with what is, learn your lessons.
Need to have things given to them. They don't know how to do things themselves.
That's a whole different framework of thinking.
Yeah.
And you also talked about that part of your experiences, you were always curious. How do our listeners, someone who's new at this kind of way of thinking and believing and maybe even looking at their experiences, how do we open ourselves up to being more curious? It seems like the narrative that we've been brought up to conditioned believing is don't be curious, don't ask questions.
Listen to authority. Yeah, I'm a rebel.
And this,
I've always had trouble with authority, always.
Well, that's that rebel. That's that little rebel in you. But
the way I would tell them, you got to learn to be a happy Martian detective. Okay, here's the deal. If you and I were sitting across from each other and you had water coming out of your eyes, I'd probably say, why are you crying? And I would assume it's an emotional basis. Martian comes down and he's assigned to examine humanity, and he's all excited. He knows nothing about us. He would come toddling up to you and go, why is there water coming from your eyes? And the Martian might get a better answer, because maybe your contact lenses are bugging you, or maybe you have allergies, or maybe there's an emotional basis. When we don't assume we know, the world opens up. And my favorite story on this, there was a guy who was married, he had a daughter. He was in a bad car accident, and at the end of it, his face kind of looked like spin art. Very self-conscious. Kind of walked around like Quasimodo, always hiding. But he was still married with a kid. So he's putting his daughter to bed one night, and she grabbed his face and smushes it next to hers and says, this would be a great picture, but it would be better if mommy's face were in the picture. Now, old him would have assumed, even my daughter thinks I'm ugly. Martian him said, why would it be a better picture if mommy's face was in the picture? And his daughter looked at him and said calmly, because mommy can't hold the camera still and you take good pictures. In that one question, he avoided decades of even my child despises me, and simply learned he was a better photographer than his wife. Ask the questions. Don't
Yes.
assume you know.
I think that's sort of where your power, your personal power comes in, is
Exactly.
it asking the questions opens you up to, there's so much more available to you than what you physically are experiencing right in front of you. And
Yes.
asking the questions, you get to those aspects.
Yes. You know, one of the things I adored about my father, who was my best friend, he understood his daughter later in life, is if this is our brain, this part was always open the corner was always open for new information, because what doesn't change dies. So when we think we know everything and we don't give ourselves the opportunity to change our minds, to have a different perspective, we die. You want brain health as you get older? Open up that corner. Let the new stuff get in.
That is so important,
Yes.
especially as our world, the external world we're living in, just constantly churns out new all the time. And the only thing we can really rely on is that it's going to constantly change. And I think that's where you find the joy and happiness and the freedom is change with it. Open
Yes.
up to whatever's coming.
Yes. It doesn't mean that you can't hold on to certain things that are you.
Right.
But be open to possibilities of realignment, reinvention. You're a kaleidoscope and you have all of these gorgeous pieces. Twist it a little bit. See what the new vision is.
I love that symbolism and that metaphor. You're a kaleidoscope, just keep shifting it around and something new is going to be perceived, because that's where the miracles happen, is in your own shift of perception. So the miracles aren't outside of you. It's all within you, looking at it like you're turning the kaleidoscope.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. So let's talk about the psychic medium channeling. Okay. And some of
woo. Sure. Let's talk wiki woo.
Let's go woo woo, because it's my favorite topic and I absolutely love it. So not only, I've always believed it's sort of like a lifestyle, that some have easily more access, not because they're special and you and I talk, but because they just open to it more. It's available to them more.
Yes.
So is there any one particular person or group that you connect with more often than others? I know that some people have like a certain board that they channel or work with, or certain spirit guides.
No, the skills that I have, I've got a boatload, but the things I love most are cards, because they tell stories, and past life retrieval. Now, what's the difference between retrieval and regression? Massive difference, and people need to know. Regression must only be done by a certified hypnotherapist or past life regressionist. Because if you're wandering in the Akashic and you see a traumatic situation or a painful death, they know how to pull you out so you can just observe it, not feel it. Okay. Someone like me, you don't want to do it yourself, but you have this life challenge you want to look at. And I go up to the Akashic, pull down the book and say, read chapter 2. Two examples. The other thing is, why me? The universe goes rifling in our file cabinet to see what we're good with. What do I have? Theater major at Brown University and a former professional actress. I know characters. Words are my drug of choice. I'm an author. I know how to tell a story. And history has always fascinated me. In fact, my husband was a museum director for an 18th century 8-building Revolutionary War site for 23 years. So what does that mean? I could have somebody else here who's good at past lives and me, and we could both see the same thing. But whereas they may say, well, I see you in a long skirt and a big hat, and there's this big ornate building behind you, so I know this is old fashioned. I would be able to see the exact same thing and go, okay, that's a hovel skirt, that's a picture hat, that kind of ostrich feather, and you're standing in front of the Brandenburg Gate, so this has to be Berlin in 1911 or 12. Okay. But don't ask me to use a pendulum, because I have a slight benign tremor in one hand. Won't trust the answers. And don't ask me to do spirit art, because I can't draw a stick figure with a sharp pencil and a lot of prayer. So I do what I love.
Okay.
And when you do what you love, you get good. examples, two quick ones of the past life work.
Mhm.
A woman came to me and said, I don't know what to do about my son. He's 29. He won't live more than a mile from me. And he always asks me about every decision he's making. What's going on? I was able to say, okay, I'm seeing Utah Beach, D-Day. He's one of the soldiers on the beach. He's got a pretty mangled leg. You're his commanding officer. You're dragging him over a dune. You take some shrapnel too, but you get him on the other side and you both live. You save his life. She looks at me and says, can you see my rank? I said, yeah, you're a sergeant. She goes, he's been calling me Sarge since he was 3 years old and we never knew why. That's one. A woman comes to me. She lives in the Midwest. She has no connection at all with the Civil War or the Underground Railroad, but it always fascinates her. And I say, all right, I'm seeing a low-ceilinged, whitewashed room. The two tall gentlemen there literally standing with their heads bent over so they would fit into the room. You're kneeling by the bed. The dress looks like 1862 or 3. It's gray serge. You've got black trim around the peplum, the sleeves, the hem. And in a rickety iron bed is a little old Black woman, very, wrinkled, very old, and she's dying. And all of you are grieving because she had gotten from a Mississippi plantation and she was just almost to Boston, which would have been the end of the Underground Railroad for her, but she was dying and she wasn't going to make it. And I opened my eyes and this woman has tears pouring down her face. She says, I've had that dream for 20 years and I've never known what it was. That's why past life retrieval helps. But don't come to me and say, I think I was Anne Boleyn because I can't wear turtlenecks, because we will not work together. I've heard that too many times.
So do you believe that everyone has a past life?
You think anybody is smart enough to get it done in one? Think again. Yes. We need dozens, hundreds. Yes.
So we all come in with a past existence, and that is through our soul experience.
Right. Like Rob talked about.
Yes.
Pre-birth planning, soul plans. When we are between lives, I just wrote an article on medium.com about this, soul plans and soulmate partnerships. And it's like a flow chart. And everybody comes in and you say, well, I need this, I need that. For instance, the soul that was my father, in our best friends in most lives, same generation. But I knew that with the difficult life I was planning, I would need a best friend for a father. So I asked that soul, will you do the father-daughter monad with me?
Yeah.
And he said yes. I mean, we even had the same birthday. So that's an example of how it works. My mother's soul is a very kind soul. But I told her I would need a very dysfunctional, abusive mother to force me to make some changes and decisions. She was willing to play that part, which is why she came in alcoholic, Crocs addicted with barbiturates. She and I have never had karma before. Most of her karma is usually with dad. But she was willing to work that with me. That's how these things happen.
So how does a person know, like a human today in this world, how do they start to realize, maybe there's a past life playing a part here? How does it come about for people?
Well, they hear a lot about it, so they're curious. Or they are very attracted to something out of all proportion. A dear friend of mine who has since passed, she was born in Massachusetts, but Confederate, very, Robert E. Lee, Robert's son, Rooney Lee, just utterly fascinated. And at one point, she was walking the battlefield, I think it was Brandy Station. Remember, my war is not Civil War, that was hers. And kept getting visions, and all of a sudden, at one point, fell with agony in her leg. She looked it up and found out that that was the anniversary and the time that Rooney Lee, at that point, had been shot in the leg and fell literally at the place she was.
Wow. So just having an experience that seems sort of out of the ordinary, and then come to find out it's not out of the ordinary.
Exactly. With me and the World War I pilot.
Okay.
I had no interest in World War I. I was afraid of Germans because of everything you learn about Nazis. And when someone took me to the old Rhinebeck Aerodrome, I really wasn't interested, but I went because they wanted to. And yeah, can we go to Woodstock after this? Because Woodstock's like, half an hour away.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, I saw two of the German planes fly, the Albatross D5A and the Fokker DR1. That's the triplane that Snoopy fights. And there was a soundless explosion in my head. And as I watched them fly, the two things in my head were, there's a story there, and I flew that one. Overnight, I needed to hear German spoken. I needed to know all about the war. I would see pictures of pilots, and I wouldn't like this one, and that was my best friend, and just like that. And so that's when I started to do my own past life research, found out who I was. And the interesting thing is, people see a picture of that pilot and me at about that age, and they say, wow, is that your grandfather? You look so much like him.
Oh, wow.
So
again, using this concept of being a rebel, being curious, willing to be a learner, and then noticing, okay, I'm having some pretty extraordinary experiences that really are not explainable given the life I'm leading.
Not noticing, that's too gentle. The universe hits you upside the head with a clue brick, and it's really hard to leave you alone.
Well, isn't that how the universe works, period? When it's really trying to get your attention, it pretty much just sort of like bogs you down with. It doesn't leave you until you willingly go, okay, fine.
Herniated disc was another clue brick. This is all about spiritual awakenings, and sometimes they're gentle, and sometimes it's boom. So,
do you believe there's a difference in a spiritual awakening and a soul awakening?
Yeah, as far as the soul awakening, that's a phrase that I don't use or hear much. So how would you define it? And then I can tell you.
Well, I don't know. That's why I'm asking you. All of a sudden it just popped in. And I think it's because there's so much work right now around understanding ourselves at the soul level.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for me, okay, I had an awakened moment, and it was not just like, some people will have an awakened moment by one experience. I had like a series of things that went on for a few years. And when I finally stopped to look at that, and I like how you use the word weave and thread, finally started to look at the pattern that was morphing and the thread that was kind of playing a part. For me, that was the awakened moment when I was like, whoa, okay. And
that's
then
a spiritual awakening.
And then years later, I feel like now I'm in tune with my soul in a much different level.
But the soul never needs to be awakened because the soul's awake. You're just connected. Remember.
Okay, so it's like you have a spiritual awakening and then you have a soul connection.
Boom. I don't know if people are actually going to be able to see this, but
they are.
This is your audio visual aid, guys. Okay.
Okay.
The palm is your soul. Everything you've ever were, will be, are. Notice you have fingers coming. These are incarnations. The soul doesn't fit inside these little bitty bodies. So a finger of it comes down, works down on earth, and everything is back connected up to God. Fingers can touch. This is why I can speak to the German pilot that I was 2 lives ago, because the soul works to bring those elements together. Now, do I have some of the same stuff that came down? Yes, remember the Michael idea of priest energy. But in that life, I was a violinist, I was an engineer, I could fly. In this life, I cannot play a musical instrument to save my soul. Words are my drug of choice. Math and I are not friends. And I have vertigo, so I couldn't get a license. Okay. So sometimes the soul does that. So the important elements will go life to life, but you don't try and repeat. You don't buy a second Disney ticket, is the way I put it.
Okay. So the spiritual awakening is that moment when
the world
it's like an opportunity or an invitation to awaken to everything the soul has been through and will, so that you're actually learning lessons in a much different way.
Yeah, I do talk about the 7 stages of spiritual awakenings. And the first thing that you're going to get is the moment where things start hitting you. Okay.
Okay.
That's the irresistible force.
Okay.
Then you've got your change in viewpoints and relationships and jobs and hobbies and things that used to define you no longer fit. You know,
Okay.
I used to be in a medieval Renaissance reenactment group in my 20s and 30s, and I love it. I would never go back to that now. I love the world I'm in too much.
Okay.
Then you pack your spiritual suitcase. This is where you know there's a journey of discovery that's awaiting you.
Okay.
And it's, you notice synchronicities and hunches and premonitions come, and dreams are more vivid, and your 6th sense starts waking up.
Okay.
The next thing is the admission to the Celestial College. Now, remember, when you're a freshman, you look at the course catalog with all the pages and you want to do everything. Well, that's what you do when you take all the courses and you watch the videos and you visit sacred places like Sedona or Glastonbury, and you figure out what your major is going to be.
Okay.
That's when you go to your apprenticeship stage. You know where you belong, and you're getting yourself wholly involved in the learning, and you discover and develop your own personal spiritual gifts. The journeyman stage is where you take over directing your own life road. You teach, you mentor, you guide, you answer questions for yourself and others as requested. You walk your talk. The stage of mastery, it's when you just look at your life in absolute gratitude and wonder. Your fears have been transmuted. Your challenges have been made into opportunities. You're living and creating and sharing your bliss. Does everybody get there? No. Do I get there? Am I there? I don't know. I'm not counting that right now.
I would say there's moments of getting to that moment of bliss, and
Yes,
then the human
moments,
person
yes.
kind of takes you back a little. And
But you know, you got to be a Paramahansa Yogananda to live that.
yeah, I mean, well, and again, we agreed to come in this lifetime as a human, and
Yep.
this means we're here to experience
Mm-hmm.
the physical world that we're in. And so I can see where those latter stages you talked about, like you kind of float in and out of them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You do. But I mean, even today, there are days I just get discouraged with the direction the world is going. I do. And I look at myself and I say, why the hell am I doing this work? But then I just say, because I meant to.
Mm-hmm.
And no, I did not choose to go into politics. I did not come in as a billionaire like Bill Gates that can give millions to do things. I'm one little light. But if it's going to get dark, I can show people how to light candles. And that's enough.
I think that is so important, because when you talk about like the victim, and we know there's like the victim mentality or victim consciousness, I also feel that, and you talked about the little bit of fame, but there's also that like fame consciousness where everyone wants to be the big deal. And sometimes we're meant to just be a small light that can do big things. Does that make sense?
Oh, completely. I mean, and fame these days is dangerous with death threats and things like that.
Yeah.
I've actually gotten death threats left on my table at psychic fairs if someone doesn't like what I told them. But, you know, about that, I was tapped for a reality show, but they said, and we're going to tell everybody nobody can do what you do and you're so amazing. I said, but that's a lie.
Right.
That's against what I say. People can do what I did. They said, oh, well, we're not interested. So, you know, they went off for the Hollywood medium or whatever. And reality shows, that's an oxymoron like jumbo shrimp. Reality shows are completely fake.
Yeah.
Anybody,
No.
you know, it's the drive-by psychic shooting stuff that the Long Island medium does drives me crazy. Excuse me, I know you don't know who I am, but your Aunt Doris, she says you have a bald tire, and if you don't change it, you're going to die in a car accident in 2 weeks. Just telling you, and she walks away. No, she doesn't. For one thing, her team goes and looks in all the Wegmans in Long Island for a month, chooses one, interviews people, has them sign the model release, and then they rehearse it 6 times. But the problem is people see that and think that's what they're allowed to do.
Well,
And they
and
do drive-by psychic shootings.
I know. And I think where I'm going to take us here in this conversation, which is beneficial to those listening, is this reality that you're looking at, this external reality, is not all there is. There's so much more that goes beyond what you can see right now.
Yes.
And so the pull, okay, the force that's yanking you down on social media and television and the news reports and all of that is taking you away from what's available to you, that helps you to expand out into a unlimited potential of consciousness, which is pure love, pure potential, just pure everything good.
Yes, I
and
agree.
We have to be able to feel the difference of the two.
Yes. Yes.
So, and again, I believe that the mediumship is a way of life. And for me, it has worked that way. And partly why I haven't gone down the route to do more of the work. I just kind of blended in the way I live my life. So how can someone living who's feeling called by this conversation and they're listening to it, how can they answer the call of their soul to live its purpose?
Well, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're meant to be a psychic medium, but
right.
But you need to find your sentence of passion no matter what. Your sentence of passion is not who you are or what you do or even how you do it. It's your vapor trail. When you go skidding into heaven on bald tires and fumes in the tank, you tell God, this is what I got to do. It's so cool. My sentence of passion is cross the bridge from fear to fearlessness and fly. Those are cats in the background, sorry. When I can take you from point A to point B and you thought you couldn't make it, whack them on the shoulder, say, here are your wings, you don't need a flight plan now, I'm living my bliss. And I've done it as an actress, an author, an inspirational speaker, a video producer, a legal assistant, a writer for a graphic novel series, an executive recruiter, and a psychic. It's not the job. It really isn't. So when you find that,
thank you for saying that, because I say that all the time. It's not that we need these certain roles to play. It's tuning into the gifts that you have for how you have them. And then where can you utilize them? And I've often said, I'm a talker and I'm a connector and I love relationships. So I can do that with somebody in the grocery store just as easily and do my work as I can if someone hires me and becomes a client. It's all kind of the same. There's variations of it, but I'm still doing what I'm called to be doing.
That's exactly right. I did a class for Sentence of Passion, and I'll give you some examples. Your motto is what you say to yourself in the morning. Your sentence of passion is your rallying cry. So there was one woman who worked in hospice. Her motto was, I dare to manifest. But her sentence of passion is, my heart connects to lead the weary home. Not just people who died, but people who felt lost within themselves.
Yes.
A friend of mine who took the class, who's a mom and she wants to make the world better. Her motto is, who needs my glitter today? Her sentence of passion is, be the sparkle in the dark. See, that when none of those say, and I have to do it this way, but who you are, how you want to be in the world, and that you could put it anywhere.
Whew. Okay, that's a big load. That kind of did a little jumpy jump on my heart just now. I felt that. That's huge for embracing your life. You're here. Yes. This is the life you are creating or signed up for. And if you don't like what you're creating, change it. But get in tune with who you really are, because that helps you to create your life.
Yes, but my darlings, I beg you, do not say to your psychic, what's my purpose? Because we haven't lived your life, faced your challenges, had your joys, walked your roads. The only one who will be able to define your purpose and your sentence of passion is you. I can help you, but you are the one that has to know. I mean, my father wanted me to be a lawyer. I love Dad. I hate lawyers. So it's like, no, it's not going to work. I knew what I was meant to do, and I finally got everything together to do it. But if I believe Dad said my purpose is to be a lawyer, I would be baby rich, but very miserable.
Wow. Okay, so what you just shared was phenomenal. If I'm sitting here listening to us with this little chit chat, and I'm thinking, yeah, but what if I don't know what that all is and I don't trust myself to know enough? So how do people get that trust in their life experiences and their wisdom and their knowing and their spiritual connection that's available? How do they trust all that?
Well, they can get help finding their sense of passion with me. But if they want to learn how to really open up to do this, I'm going to get off camera for 18 and a half seconds and pull the thing that will show you.
Okay.
The book.
So if you're just listening, you might want to go check us out on YouTube so you can see what Corbie's going to show us here.
And I'm also going to tell you, the book is Opening to Channel, How to Connect with Your Guides by Sanaya Roman and Dwayne Packer. This is the book that I started with 30 years ago.
Wow.
And it's been revised since. It's so good. It gives you the structure. It holds your hand. But they don't say, and we're the only way to do it. Please, 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 please go look. There are 8 billion people in the world. Mm-hmm. I am not going to be able to read y'all. I'm not.
No.
We need every single person who can connect with themselves, who can learn themselves, and maybe when they connect and learn themselves, they can reach out and pass the candle and help somebody else do the same thing. We need you. So don't ever think I'm not spiritual enough, or I'm not advanced enough, or I'm not nothing enough. Start where you are. Favorite saying from Teddy Roosevelt: do what you can with what you have where you are. That's how you start.
I think it's just about what Nike said. Just do it.
Yes. Yes, just do it.
Connect.
Whether or not you wear Nike sneakers.
Yeah, it's not about Nike or Nike sneakers. I just like the words.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's about just connect. Just feel that connection and just start doing it, because we have so much to offer people.
Mm-hmm.
And being connected is just the way to live life in such an amazing way. Yes,
exactly right.
Okay, so you wrote some books, and I want to make sure we talk about them before we jump off. But you wrote Clean Out Your Life-Closet, The Psychic Yellow Brick Road, and you've got The Magic Who Needs a Genie. Oh my God, I just love those titles, seriously.
Titles are fun to make up. They really are. So, in very brief, Clean Out Your Life-Closet was my first book. It is self-help, but you write it with me. And it covers clarity, adaptability, simplicity, and making friends with stress. And you learn you've got your own answers, and I help you find them. But they're your answers.
Yeah.
Second one, The Psychic Yellow Brick Road. The subtitle is How to Find the Real Wizards and Avoid the Flying Monkeys. And, you know, if you go to an art museum, you may love sculpture and oil paintings, but you don't want to learn to do it yourself.
Yeah.
There are tons of books out there for psychic development, but there was no book that said this is how to stay safe when you're wandering around in the psychic realms and you want counseling. Mm-hmm. And I don't care if you never come to me after you read that. If that helps you get a good, safe psychic reading, well, all boats rise. I'm good.
Right.
And if you are crazy enough, my darlings, to want to do what I do out as a business, remember I was on the road for 18 years. You've got The Magic Who Needs a Genie. The subtitle is The A-Lister's Guide to Holistic Expo Success. And whether you're a psychic or you're a vendor of stuff or you're a healer, that book is going to show you how to straddle the twin mountains of business acumen and wiki-woo and make a living.
I love that you call it wiki-woo. That's like hilarious.
Look, I take my work very seriously, but me not so much. And I have done stand-up comedy about you think a psychic's life is easy. So yeah, you're going to laugh.
You are the sweetest little thing I've ever seen in my life. I love talking to you. You keep it real.
Yep. Yep.
You keep the woo-woo real by just sort of, hey, this is just it. This is just my work.
Right. No unicorns and glitter wings here, kids. I'm practical and I'm from New York. Deal with it.
Okay, yeah, that's why I think I love you so much more now after our talk than before our talk, and I loved you before, so there you go. Corbie, this has been an amazing conversation, so helpful, so enlightening. so insightful and filled with so much wisdom and practicality for people to just open up to the truth of who you are.
Thank you. Thank you. That means that I did my work today.
Yeah, I'm totally excited. And so as we kind of wrap up, I want to ask you our high five. What inspires you?
What inspires me is the fact that I have made it this long and I'm in one piece and I still have time to do things. It's been a crazy life, but it has been perfect.
And I really appreciate your stories where you sort of blip over all these major things in your life. And you do it in a way that helps us focus on the learning and the lessons you extracted, and not the drama of the story where we kind of fall back into a role we don't want to play anymore. It was just there for that lesson to be learned.
Exactly right.
So I love your enthusiasm about that. How do you have fun?
Oh, I highly recommend that you get a Maine Coon. They are little dogs in cat suits. And our 27-pound boy, Prawn, is a hoot. I love cooking. My husband and I love to go out and what we call mooching, which is just go and drive and wander and see new people. It's a little tough while we're going through COVID, but that's the best part.
Yeah, well, hopefully within the next year, we can all kind of get back into those ways of just getting out and about sometimes.
Oh, honey, from your mouth to God's ears. What can I tell you?
I know. I'm sitting in that space. What's one thing you can't live without?
Other than coffee, because New York isn't coffee, you know. What I can't live without.
Do you drink your coffee black or with cream?
Oh, no, half and half and sugar in the morning. My 1 cup of indulgence. What can I live without? I have to write. Don't tell me I'm not allowed to write. I just wilt.
Well, you said your drug of choice is words, so I would think that writing just kind of does bring you pure bliss and joy.
It does. It's when as the old commercial said, the Mazda motor is going hum. Everything is right in line.
Oh, that's so sweet to hear. So what does freedom mean to you then?
Freedom means the ability to put myself and my lessons and my teaching out there without fear. Some days are better than others with that.
That feels good when you say that. I think that's a really great place to be when we can, one, own our story enough to share it with someone else in a way that then opens them up to what we've experienced and the freedom of joy and peace and love we've gotten to from it.
Yes. Yeah. That's if I can put myself out there, that is freedom, and the rest of it is details.
Yeah. And details that really aren't up to you. They're up to the big universal consciousness to figure out who needs to hear it and where it goes.
That's right. That's right.
What are you grateful for?
Oh, now you're talking about my gratitude bubbles. I'm very grateful that after 2 bad marriages, I got the good one. I am grateful that my husband is as supportive as he is. I mean, the inside of my wedding ring says, I believe in you. And I am grateful that I have learned that money is not everything. I came from your typical upper middle class, nice Jewish family in New Jersey. Daddy was a doctor. And where I live now, it's a tiny little bungalow in the middle of a hayfield in the middle of a very rural New York County. It is not what I expected for myself.
Yeah.
Enough. It is enough. And I'm comfortable and grateful.
Just that statement when you said it is enough, like that just brings about so much hope and inspiration to be in a place where I think that's really a different way of looking at gratitude, is to say, you know, sometimes we think gratitude has to be like, oh, I have to be happy with everything. I think the fact that you just said that, it kind of shifted my whole way of looking, that maybe gratitude is about in this moment, it's enough.
Yes, that's a gratitude bubble. When all of a sudden, you know, I'm washing the pan because I just did fried eggs for Carl. That's always his pre-go out snow shovel breakfast. And, you know, he is strong enough to do the shoveling. Our house is warm. We can afford eggs and a pan.
Mhm.
It just all the little tiny things just coalesce, and you say, "Whoa, this moment is so perfect."
Yeah, that is so okay. We're gonna kind of draw it to an end on that because that was powerful. When this moment is enough.
Mhm.
Beautiful. Corbie, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been beautiful experience with you.
I've had a great time. Thank you.
And listeners, thank you so much for listening to Living the Liminal this week. Remember who you are, brave the confidence, courageously choose you, be the change, embrace growth, and expand your awareness. You are a beautiful soul. I love you. Peace out, my friends.